record number of new coronavirus cases reported in Los Angeles County over the last 24 hours is 1,093, with 58 additional deaths. Here in Torrance, 11 additional cases were reported with 1 new death. Welcome to COVID-19 Today. I'm Christine Lee. It's Wednesday, March 2nd. LA County could loosen its indoor masking rule for both vaccinated and unvaccinated people as early as this Friday. California no longer requires masks indoors, but strongly recommends them instead. But state officials gave local jurisdictions the final say, and according to LA County Public Health Director Dr. Barbara Ferrer, we will likely be able to align with the state by Friday. She says the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention releases new data every Thursday. So tomorrow, LA County will likely fall from the high virus activity category to low, allowing for the change in indoor masking rules. She adds that the county is prepared to issue a new health officer order tomorrow, which would take effect the following day. LA County's public health officials already announced that our region will follow the state's revised indoor masking measures at schools and child care centers starting March 12th. But they say school districts can decide on whether or not to implement the changes based on feedback from community members, students, and teachers. The White House announced a new strategy today, laying out the next phase of its response to the pandemic. The nearly 100-page National COVID-19 Preparedness Plan focuses on 4 key goals: protect against and treat COVID-19, prepare for new variants, prevent economic and educational shutdowns, and continue to vaccinate the world. It involves fewer disruptions to daily life while preparing for the unpredictable potential of another game-changing variant. One highlight is a new test-to-treat plan that provides free antiviral pills at pharmacies to those who test positive for the virus. The new strategy also provides employers and schools the resources they need to stay open. This announcement comes on the heels of President Joe Biden's State of the Union address, in which he declared that the country can move forward safely into a less disruptive phase of the pandemic. The White House's coronavirus response team worked on this plan for nearly 2 months, consulting with dozens of experts, public health officials, and governors during the process. You can learn more by going to whitehouse.gov/COVID-plan. Americans can order additional free at-home COVID-19 tests starting next week. President Biden announced last night during his State of the Union address that those who already ordered the free tests earlier this year can do so again. The government started providing free rapid antigen tests in January to any household that requested them. It teamed up with the U.S. Postal Service to deliver up to 4 tests per residential address. The website now says every home in the U.S. can order an additional set of 4 tests starting next week. President Biden announced in December his plan to make 500 million tests available to Americans by mail during a time when the Omicron variant was surging across the country. And while 500 million free tests were available, less than 300 million were actually ordered by Americans. To order your free test kits, go to covidtests.gov. New data suggests that the Pfizer and BioNTech vaccine is less effective in younger kids. Numbers from New York State show a rapid and substantial decline in protection after vaccination in children ages 5 to 11. Efficacy against infections dropped off more quickly and dramatically than the decline seen in older kids. The study also found a significant but less dramatic decline in protection against hospitalizations. The findings were gathered by researchers working for the New York State Department of Health. They were recently presented, along with information from other databases, to the COVID vaccine work group of the Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices, who are independent vaccine experts advising the CDC. The New York study analyzed health records for COVID-19 cases in children and teens from December 13th, 2021 to January 30th of this year. During that time, 2-dose vaccine protection against infection for kids ages 5 to 11 dropped from 68 to 12%, and the vaccine's effectiveness at preventing hospitalization declined from 100 to 48%. By comparison, the two-dose protection against infection for kids ages 12 to 17 only dropped from 66 to 51%, and protection against hospitalization from 85 to 73%. The state recorded more than 850,000 COVID-19 cases in 12 to 17-year-olds and about 365,000 cases in kids ages 5 to 11 during that time. This data comes after more disappointing results from Pfizer involving trials of an even lower vaccine dose for kids under age 5. Pfizer officials say they are still confident in the protection and safety of its COVID-19 vaccine. Another study finds a link between COVID-19 and nerve damage. Researchers closely examined 17 people suffering from persistent symptoms after getting the virus and found almost 60% of them had nerve damage, possibly caused by a defective immune response. These patients had the so-called long COVID, which is a condition that arises within 3 months of a COVID-19 infection and lasts for at least 2 months. Neurologist and lead study author Anne-Louise Oaklander believes that the nerves that control breathing, blood vessels, and even digestion in some cases are damaged in these patients. As many as 30% of people who have COVID-19 are believed to develop long COVID. Their symptoms can range from fatigue, rapid heartbeat, shortness of breath, cognitive difficulties, chronic pain, sensory abnormalities, and muscle weakness. Almost all of the study participants had mild COVID-19 cases, and none of them had nerve damage before their infections. Researchers say this finding could point to new treatments in the future. Well, we all know that exercising is good for our health, but a new study shows it could even help us from getting Alzheimer's or dementia. Researchers at the Washington, D.C. VA Medical Center followed a group of almost 650,000 military veterans with an average age of 61 for 9 years. They discovered that staying active and fit as we get older can help cut the risk of Alzheimer's or dementia by 1/3. None of these individuals had Alzheimer's when the study began, but by the end, 9.5 cases of the condition developed for every 1,000 person years for non-active participants. By comparison, there were just 6.4 cases for every 1,000 person years for active participants. Researchers say walking for 2.5 hours a week, that's just 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week, can have a significant impact. Study author Dr. Edward Zamrini says people can work toward making incremental changes and improvements in their physical fitness, and hopefully that will lead to a decrease in their risk of Alzheimer's years later. He hopes to develop a simple scale that can be modified for each person so they see tangible benefits of making small but healthy choices. Well, traveling to Hawaii will get easier in just a few weeks. The state's Safe Travels program, which requires a 5-day quarantine or a vaccine or negative test verification for domestic travelers, will come to an end on March 25th. After that date, passengers from the U.S. arriving in Hawaii will no longer need to show proof of vaccination or a negative COVID-19 test to avoid a mandatory quarantine. Hawaii officials say while changes are coming soon, the Safe Travels requirements must be met by all incoming domestic passengers before March 25th. Hawaii is one of several states loosening its COVID-19 restrictions as cases and hospitalizations continue to drop following the Omicron surge. International travelers have different travel requirements set by the federal government. California issued its first ever permits for self-driving cars this week. The California Public Utilities Commission issued the permits on Monday to 2 companies, Waymo and Cruise. Waymo can now operate its autonomous vehicles with paid passengers in them in designated parts of San Francisco and San Mateo counties up to 65 miles per hour with drivers present in the vehicles. Cruise is also allowed to provide the driver deployment service, but only on some roads in San Francisco between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. with speeds of up to 30 miles per hour. Both companies had prior permits allowing them to operate with passengers on a testing basis with no paid fares. Waymo, which is owned by Alphabet, the parent company of Google, will now plan to roll out a broader app-based paid taxi service in its all-electric Jaguar vehicles in the coming weeks. Waymo has already been offering paid taxi services in Phoenix over the last 3 years, with cars since October of 2020 being fully driverless with no one in the driver's seat. Meanwhile, Cruise, which is owned by General Motors, is getting closer to its goal. Officials say the latest permit approval is another step forward towards launching a driverless commercial ride-hail service in San Francisco. Neither Waymo nor Cruise is yet permitted to operate its autonomous vehicles in fog or heavy rain. Well, Hollywood is taking some bold actions in response to the Russia-Ukraine crisis. Less than 48 hours after power couple Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds offered to match up to $1 million in donations to help the people of Ukraine, the goal has been met, leading to a big thank you from the United Nations Refugee Agency. The UN says about 3 million people affected by the Russian invasion will need help this year, and the money raised will provide aid and protection for displaced Ukrainians. Hollywood studios are also contributing sanctions against Russia by blocking releases of new movies there. Disney was the first to make the move on Monday. Pixar's Turning Red premieres this week, but people in Russia won't be able to see it. A Disney spokesperson says they are pausing the release of theatrical films in Russia given the unprovoked invasion of Ukraine and the tragic humanitarian crisis, and will make future business decisions based on the evolving situation. In the meantime, the company is working with its NGO partners to provide urgent aid and other humanitarian assistance to refugees. Warner Brothers' premiere of The Batman, which was supposed to take place this Friday in Russia, was paused, with officials saying they'll continue to monitor the situation and hope for a swift and peaceful resolution to this tragedy. And Sony's Morbius, which was planning for an April release in Russia, was also pulled for now, with a spokesperson saying their thoughts and prayers are with all those who have been impacted and hope the crisis will be resolved quickly. The Torrance City Council met last night to conduct city business. A proclamation was read declaring March 7th through the 14th as California Arbor Week in the city of Torrance. The City Council members reviewed the need for extending the local emergency related to COVID-19 that was proclaimed in March 2020 and adopted a resolution to extend it. They also adopted an ordinance amending the Torrance Municipal Code establishing mandatory organic waste disposal reduction requirements as mandated under state law. You can watch complete replays of the meeting on our website, YouTube, Facebook, and of course, right here on City Cable. Well, today is Ash Wednesday, a Christian holy day of prayer and fasting, which falls on the first day of Lent. This year, with the violence taking place in Ukraine, Pope Francis is appealing to everyone, believers and non-believers, to make today a day of fasting for peace. Ukrainian Catholics across Southern California have been offering prayers for peace in their homeland, which came under attack last week. And broader groups of Christians are beginning their 40-day spiritual journey by receiving ashes on their foreheads from their church leaders, fasting from something they enjoy, and taking more time out of their day to pray and seek spiritual renewal. Churches across Torrance are offering special services throughout the day for Ash Wednesday. Here are a couple we found. The First Lutheran Church and School has a soup supper at 6 p.m., followed by communion with ashes at 7. And Faith United Methodist Church has an in-person service at 5 p.m., followed by a joint virtual service with local churches at 7. Well, before we go, at the end of each program, we like to share feel-good stories from our community. Pictures, images, and videos that remind us of how resilient our community is and how Torrance truly cares. Well, Fat Tuesday was yesterday, and we showed you the festivities that took place once again in Louisiana. But Red Car Brewery and Restaurant is bringing Mardi Gras right here to Old Torrance until, let's call it Fat Thursday. If you want a taste of New Orleans, Red Car will have a number of special dishes today and tomorrow, including beignets, Cajun sausage pizza, and Bayou jambalaya. What a delicious way to support a small business while taking your taste buds on a trip. Now, if you have a great story, an upcoming event, a photo or video you'd like to share, email us at covid19today@torranceca.gov. We would love to hear from you. Well, that's our update for COVID-19 Today. We'll see you back here tomorrow as Bella Shaw brings you the latest. Be safe, stay healthy, and thank you for tuning in. We'll see you next time.